Hi, my name is Francisco Mantoja, and this is my educational video on conformity. So, a quick overview of what we're going to cover. 1. What is conformity? 2. Acceptance. 3. Compliance. And 4. Obedience. Conformity is a change in a person's behavior or opinions as a result of real or imagined pressure from a person or group of people. Is conformity good or bad? Conformity doesn't necessarily need to be due to direct pressure or command from others. Conformity can be both good and bad depending on what it's used for. For example, conforming to the rules, driving at an acceptable speed limit, and using stop signs can be seen as good. Conformity can also be bad. For example, the German army conforming to Hitler's demands. Perhaps in the eyes of the soldiers, conforming was a good thing, considering those who didn't conform were seen as traitors for not abiding by Nazi laws. Key takeaways so far are conformity can be both good and bad. Conformity doesn't need to be due to any actual direct pressure or command from others. Conformity can come in three types: acceptance, compliance, and obedience. So, what is acceptance? Acceptance is conformity that involves both acting and believing in accord with social pressure. It can be seen as sincere inward conformity. Here, one has a genuine belief in what the group has persuaded them to do. For example, being persuaded to recycle because it helps out the environment and because you can make money from selling cans. The man both acts and believes that recycling is great. Not only is he keeping the environment clean, he is also accepting of the idea because it will help him out too. Next is compliance. So what is compliance? Compliance is going along with the request or demand. People often comply to gain reward or avoid punishment. It can be characterized as doing an expectation or request without really believing in what you are doing. For example, if you come across a mob of angry feminists who stop you and ask if you are pro-choice, you stutter, and even though you may not agree with them, for fear of retaliation, you comply to their demands to avoid harassment. Next is obedience. Now, obedience is changing your behavior to please an authority figure or to avoid aversive consequences. It's described as acting in accord with a direct or order or command. Obedience is a variation of compliance. It involves following explicit orders. For example, a husband gets home and attempts to kiss his wife. She yells, "Get away from me and go shower, you reek." The husband follows her orders to avoid getting her angry and sleeping on the couch. So, what are the biggest predictors of conformity? There's social rules. Most of us, most of the time, conform to the guidelines provided by the roles we perform. For example, a girl who has to take care of her siblings all the time may conform to the role of a caregiver. Number two, personality. Generally speaking, people higher in agreeableness and conscientiousness are more likely to conform. In contrast, people high in openness to experience and personality trait connected to creativity and socially progressive thinking are less likely to conform. And finally, culture. People from collectivist cultures are more likely to conform. For example, countries like Japan. In contrast, cultures that are individualistic, like the United States, tend to view conformity as negative. How conformity drives polarization. According to Cass R. Sunstein's book Conformity, conformity has deep implications for political polarization. Sunstein notes that like-minded people go to extremes and cites three factors for why this happens: information, corroboration, and social comparison. An example for information is flat earthers. If you are in a social group whose members tend to be opposed to the earth being round, it's unlikely that you will ever hear any argument in favor of this belief. With your limited information, you are more likely to move in the direction of earth being flat rather than supporting that the earth is actually an oblate spheroid. An example for corroboration is when people lack confidence in their views and tend to have more moderate opinions. If you surround yourself with people who share your views, this will end up corroborating your beliefs. In this environment, you will become more confident that you are correct and be more likely to move in an extreme direction. An example for social comparison is wanting to be perceived favorably by members of our group. If our friends are pro gun or pro choice, we are more likely to lean towards their beliefs. Overall, all these factors together demonstrate how excessive conformity can drive polarization. We saw this recently in the 2021 elections where everybody chose Joe Biden. They simply hated Trump, which shows lack of information. Not to mention, many corroborated their beliefs to their political party. Also, many choose to hate Trump simply because their friends did. Others also hated Trump because they did not want to be seen negatively by their peers. For example, Donald Trump at the time was associated with being a sexist, a racist, and incompetent by the media.